Hi, my name is Dr. John Douillard, and today I want to talk about the benefits of slowing down your breath. Studies show that if you breathe at just 6 breaths per minute, there's a profound benefit for your heart, your lungs, your mood, and your nervous system. In particular, a Ayurvedic pranayama breathing technique called Ujjayi Pranayama is a technique that actually slows your breath down. By definition, it's a slow pranayama. And the benefits of breathing slow are actually quite profound. Let's talk about that. There was one study where about 4 advanced yogis who were trained in pranayama breathed at 1 breath per minute. That was a 20-second breath in through the nose, a 20-second hold, and a 20-second exhale. And they were able to maintain that for 31 minutes. And they found that there was just a dramatic improvement of cardiovascular risk factors where stroke index came down, blood pressure came down, heart rate came down, ejection factors went up in the heart, just a host of benefits. And in the article associated with this video at LifeSpa.com, you can read all the details of that study, which is really quite profound. But that's a pretty amazing feat to breathe at 1 breath per minute. That's 1 breath every 60 seconds. That's a lot. But we're only talking about breathing 6 breaths per minute, which is really not that difficult. But we all can get there, and I'm going to teach you how to get there today. One of my favorite techniques that I wrote in my book, Body, Mind, and Sport, was a count your steps while you breathe. In other words, you count 1, 2 steps for my in-breath and 1, 2 steps for my out-breath. So that was a total of 4 steps for 1 complete breath. So what you want to start to do when you go for a walk is count 1, 2, 3, 4 on the in, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the out, and you go to 8, and then you go to 10, then you go to 16, then you go to 20, and 20 would be your goal. So you're looking to do 10 steps on the in and 10 steps on the out. There's an old saying that in Ayurveda that when you breathe during activity, you should breathe so calm that you don't even move the hairs inside your nostrils. So this is a goal. One of the goals to sort of create that inner calm, right? In our world with all the craziness, the more we can amp up parasympathetic activation and decrease sympathetic fight or flight, the better off we're going to be. And that's exactly what the studies show. Not only do they benefit the heart and the lungs and the nervous system, they help us cope with stress by increasing parasympathetic activation. We become more calm. And I'll tell you how that happens as well. In another study where they did literally just 6 breaths per minute, they found that there was a significant decrease in anxiety-related issues, decrease in blood pressure, an increase in oxygen saturation, which means that the blood was more saturated, and of course, it increased parasympathetic activation. It did that by increasing the sensitivity of these baroreceptors in the lower lobes of our lungs that support parasympathetic activation, which is sort of a really cool thing. So there's many studies showing that breathing at 6 breaths per minute is sort of the magic number. They found that a lot of the benefits were really good with slow breathing, but they all maximized at the 6 breath per minute mark, which is really only, a 5-second breath in and a 5-second breath out, and you maintain that for 5 or 10 minutes. Now, in particular, with the breathing technique called Ujjayi breathing, they found that there was significant decrease in anxiety, depression, decrease in stress. The impact of stress physically, mentally, and emotionally were all supported by using Ujjayi breathing technique. So what is Ujjayi breathing? Well, Ujjayi breathing is a breathing technique where you constrict the back of your throat. The glottis muscle in the back of the throat is a little bit constricted. You're breathing in and out only through your nose, but you're constricting the back of your throat, so you sort of create a snoring Darth Vader ocean sound, something like this. So in and out. So it's a very gentle and a very slow breath. If you try to force it, it's hard to keep that glottis muscle contracted, which is really, really important. So when you contract your glottis muscle, you're creating a little bit of breathing resistance, and that's the key here. If you remember, I wrote an article about a breathing technique called pratiloma, where you breathe in against constricted nostrils to create resistance. And the resistance increases the contractibility of your diaphragm. And a lot of us, the study with elite athletes found that half the elite athletes had a diaphragm that wasn't contracting and relaxing fully. Well, the diaphragm is the number one muscle to amp up parasympathetic, rest, rejuvenate, and digest neurological function, right? So if your diaphragm is not contracting great, which a lot of us it isn't, because we sit around and we just sit and we don't really move, and the diaphragm doesn't really have to contract and relax the way it should, so we don't breathe good. We don't breathe efficiently. Our diaphragm has become lazy. And so these resistant breathing techniques, Ujjayi, a slow breathing technique, and pratiloma, a little bit more aggressive, they both create resistance, and that's sort of where the magic happens. So when you do Ujjayi, you breathe in and out. When you do that and you breathe all the way out and all the way in, key word, all the way in, all the way out. When I talk about deep breathing, deep, slow breathing, the key word is on deep, because it's the depth of the breath that forces the diaphragm to fully contract and therefore fully relax. And when you breathe out all the way, making that sound, you'll notice that your stomach muscles, your abdominal muscles have to engage. Matter of fact, it'd be impossible for you to make that sound, the Ujjayi sound, breathe all the way out and not engage your abdominal muscles, because your abdominal muscles are the secondary muscles of breathing. So when you breathe in, your diaphragm contracts to pull all the air in, and then it relaxes, and what squeezes the air out, a couple of things. One, your diaphragm, your stomach muscles are contracting, and your rib cage is contracting with something called elastic recoil. That's how we exhale. Inhale, it's a contraction of the diaphragm that pulls like a piston, the piston in your car's engine, the air into the lower lobes of your lungs. And in the lower lobes of your lungs are those baroreceptors, those baroreflexes that activate the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic rest, rebuild, rejuvenate nervous system, which is really important. So the key with Ujjayi is using really slow all the way in, and you'll feel, if you go all the way in, you'll feel your diaphragm contracting because you create a resistance, exactly like my pratiloma article, which is called Strengthen Your Lungs Now Pratiloma. You can type that into my website at lifespa.com and read about that breathing technique. Whole different set of benefits, but similar in the benefit of the vagus nerve. And then when you breathe out, you'll feel your abdominal muscles contracting. And that causes an abdominal, diaphragmatic, cardiac massage. And on your heart is a nerve called the vagus nerve. That causes the vagal parasympathetic response. So when you breathe in, you're breathing in through the resistance of the glottis muscle, and that's causing you to force your diaphragm to fully contract and air all the way down, activate parasympathetic receptors. And when you breathe out, you have abdominal contraction, elastic recoil of your rib cage. You breathe all the way out. The abdominal muscle contraction causes an abdominal, diaphragmatic, cardiac massage, which activates the vagus nerve on your heart and calms you down. In our study, in my first book, Body, Mind, and Sport, we did research on brainwave, on the difference between nose breathing and mouth breathing during exercise. We published a study in the International Journal of Neuroscience. Type in nose breathing exercise on my website at lifespa.com. You can read all that study, all that science. But really importantly is that we found that when you breathe through the nose, the brain went into an alpha state, a meditative calm during vigorous exercise. The brain went into a coherent state where all the parts of the brain were doing the same thing. So there was a level of coherence, a level of brainwave composure and calm and meditation, alpha waves. There was also an amped up increase of parasympathetic activation and a decrease in sympathetic activation, which is usually opposite during exercise. Usually you see an increase in sympathetic when you exercise and a decrease in parasympathetic. Ours went actually the opposite way, and both opposite nervous systems were coexisting. And when my first book, Body, Mind, Sport, was all about trying to prove the runner's high, the zone where athletes would say my best race is my easiest race, that coexistence of dynamic physical activity and inner peace and calm, where you're reaching this unbelievable human potential, superhuman type experiences, Roger Bannister, when he broke the 4-minute mile, he said that the world seemed to stand still. I felt like I was going slow, no pain, no strain. That kind of an experience happens when you have the coexistence of opposites. You're dynamically active in your body, but your physiology is composed and calm, still amping up parasympathetic activation, not fully fight or flight. It's really cool stuff, and it's all about taking that calm into your world, into your life, and that's what these breathing techniques really do for you. So there's, study after study about the 6-minute breath. So you want to shoot for, when you're doing your Ujjayi, you want to shoot for a 6-minute breath, which is a 5-second inhale, 5-second exhalation. Now, you would make sure that you start comfortably with maybe a 2 or a 3 count on the in and a 2 or 3 count on the out, working your way up to a 5 count on the in and a 5 count on the out, which gets you to the 6 breaths per minute. And that's how it works. So it look, your Ujjayi Pranayama. Another way people sometimes can't find how to make that glottis contract and how to find that sound. And I teach this in my Body, Mind, Sport book about how to using the Ujjayi during exhalation to activate that abdominal diaphragmatic massage during vigorous exercise to flip the brain into an alpha state so you're calm in the midst of a stressful exercise experience. It's a really cool concept. So when you breathe out all the way, you get that abdominal diaphragmatic massage. Now, in some of the Ayurvedic breathing techniques, we talk about doing kumbhak, breath retention, breath holds. Absolutely beneficial, something you need to do and start very slow. In this particular technique, you're going to start with 2 or 3 breaths on the in, 2 or 3 breaths on the out with the Ujjayi, and then eventually get to your 5 and 5. Once you establish 6 breaths per minute, then you can start experimenting with a little bit of a breath hold. You start that comfortably on the inhale, and then you can eventually work your way to doing the breath hold on the exhale. I've written a couple of articles on breath retention. It's called kumbhak in Ayurveda. So you can read those articles and read the incredible science, which I won't get into right now, on what's called intermittent hypoxia, which is, the benefits of having a little bit less oxygen in your blood. And when the oxygen is not in your blood, guess where it is? In your tissues. And that's where the magic happens with all the science on intermittent hypoxia. So please read that article, type in intermittent hypoxia or kumbhak or breath retention on my website at lifespa.com and read those articles because they're phenomenal. Read the Strengthen Your Lungs Now Pratyaloma article because that breathing technique is really phenomenal. And then here you learn about Ujjayi Pranayama, one of the classic slow, deep pranayama techniques that is just, just miles of research done on the benefits of slow, long, steady breathing, increasing the oxygen saturation and then therefore the delivery of that oxygen into your tissue. So check that out. Again, when you do the Ujjayi Pranayama, sometimes you can find it by pretending like you're cleaning your glasses and going like, and then you close your mouth and make the same sound. Sort of the same sound. Sometimes people can't find how to make the Ujjayi sound, so that's one way to help. And it's just breathing deeply in and out. All the way, you feel that abdominal muscles contract. Breathe in. All the way, you'll feel your diaphragm contract. If you don't go all the way, you're not going to feel your diaphragm contract. That's the key. That's why the emphasis on deep and slow. And when you breathe out, you'll feel your abdominal muscles contract, and that's key too, because that creates the abdominal diaphragmatic cardiac massage, which gives you the vagal response. Okay, check it out. I would suggest starting with 5 or 10 minutes of Ujjayi like that. You're finding that your comfortable rhythm, there should be effortless and no strain whatsoever. Find your rhythm, and as you get better, you can keep extending the length of your inhalation and exhalation. Do start with 5 minutes at a clip and work your up to 10 or 20 minutes in a session. It's quite phenomenal, very relaxing, can be done before a stressful situation, can be done before bed. This breathing technique can be done anytime, of course, generally not done around food while you're digesting. Okay, thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard. Do you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe and share.
This recording is brought to you by LifeSpa, where ancient Ayurvedic wisdom meets modern science. Get access to free health video newsletters by Dr. John at lifespa.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.